So again, my name's Heather, and I'm a teacher with the Idaho Virtual Academy, and I'll tell you, I just love math. I really love math, and to be honest, I really wanted to do this strategy class because I feel like as a parent, I'm actually still learning, even though I'm a teacher and I know, but on the parent side, I still am having a little bit of difficulty in how to teach my own children. It's easy for me to teach it to my students, but there's just a different aspect when it's your own children. And so I just wanted to really kind of touch base with you guys, see how you're feeling, get maybe some strategies from you, and talk as a whole group, because that's kind of the common core theme, is to talk as groups. And so I'm just really excited to get going on this. So Carly last month, she had this great chart up here, and I didn't know if you guys were here for the language one, but these are the states that are in green that have adopted the Common Core, and we basically, all of the same states, we all do the same state test in the springtime. So there's two different formats. Idaho does the SBAC, and to be honest, if you are in a state that does not use the SBAC, I know there's one other test that was adopted, and each state had the choice of which test to adopt, but they're very, very similar. But ours is the SBAC. But the state of Idaho, I don't know if your states are different, but we're actually changing the name this year to ISAT 2.0. But it's all the same test that all students take nationwide. So as you can see, the majority of us are in the same boat, and there's just a few that have not adopted it. So I just thought I'd put your pointer up there. If you guys want to put your pointer, I'm right here in Boise, Idaho, around there. Maybe put your pointer so we can kind of see where you guys are all at. If you want to put a little dot, a smiley face, whatever it might be in where you are in your state. Awesome. We've got a few all over. Anybody else? Great. Right there. Perfect. Awesome. So yeah, as you can see, I mean, we're just kind of all over, and it's also so awesome just to talk to one another and kind of gain some new ideas, because really each of our children are so different. Okay, Georgia, the test is different for advanced learner students than other students? No, the exact same test. So they do not differentiate on the test, believe it or not. And we'll talk a little bit about that when I go through an example, because I wanted you guys to see, because one of the things that I have found with working with my gifted students in our virtual setting is that they have to do a lot of explanation in the example. And what I found is that it's starting to frustrate my students just a little bit because they feel it as a little babyish. And I think that is very interesting, and I thought that was a really good thing to kind of talk about as a group, that you need to be in a discussion with your children about the test and why they need to discuss it and why they need to write it out. Because as you know, most of them can probably figure it out pretty quickly in their mind. Or they might draw something simple and be, oh, I know that answer. And then when you have to say, hey, you need to tell me why and write it out, they kind of look at you like, what? And that's kind of what I've been running into, and that's why I really wanted to talk to you guys as parents to give you some tools for that. So one thing that was really great that K-12 did in their curriculum was they did this year put the extended problems, and you can find these, and they're called the real world applications in math, and they're in grades 3 and up. Kindergarten through 2nd grade, they do not have those. I know that they're in the discussion of having those implemented next year. But for right now, they do have them in 3rd and up. And of course, those are the students that are going to be taking the state test, so they're really good. How many of you, give me a green check mark, how many of you have done your extended problem? Okay, great. Looks like about half of us have done them. What were your, if you guys don't mind, either put it in the chat or get on the microphone. I'd love to know what your feedback is on those. How did you feel about these? Were you upset? Were you confused? Did you think they were too much? Did you think they were just right? Yes, Nancy, that's a lot of the feedback we received as well. They were extremely hard for your student. Some of them, exactly, very frustrating. And as a parent, I get a little frustrated too because I'm like, this is new for me. This is very new for me as well because I'm assuming most of the parents out there are the same age I am. I have a 8th grader, I have a 5th grader, and I actually have a 1st grader. So I have all the spectrum. And what I was taught as a child and growing up, and even in college what I was taught, is very different than what is taught now. So what happens is I'm trying to learn how to teach these to my children. And that's why I wanted to help you guys out because, we've kind of come away with some things, especially in education. We've been taught and had classes on these that I kind of have a new look at it and I have some tools. Julie said, confused at first, found them to be very hard for the student and actually slower than the old process. Absolutely, Julie, yes. A lot slower. And this frustrates our gifted students, doesn't it? Our bright and gifted students, sometimes they do not like to take the time because they already know the answer. And this can be very frustrating. So it's up to us to really help prepare them and give them a little bit more comfort to help them be successful in these. So remember this. I just had to do this. Do you remember Iowa Basic? Oh, I sure do. This is what I took. And believe it or not, these are still out there. Can you believe it? Oh, yeah. Right back here. Thanks. Is it Nayla? A pretty name. Right here, the extended problems, the real-world applications. These are in all K-12 math units in grades 3 and up. So you can find these. So we were just asking your feedback, what you were thinking about them or what your student had felt about them. But these are very, just like I said back on this topic, these are very aligned. They are exactly the type of problems that they're going to get on their spring test. Okay, so right here, do you remember the Iowa Basics? I sure do. Remember filling in the little dots growing up? Things have changed quite a bit. Iowa Basics, you would have, A, B, C, and you'd fill in the little dots, a little pencil and paper. They are very just easy questions. What do you think? What's the answer? Just questions from 2 years ago when we were not aligned and when we each had our own state test. It was just, what is the value of this digit 3 in the number? You pick A, B, C, or D, and that was it. Questions are not like that anymore. The Common Core questions are not like that. So she said, I like this. These have been quite easy so far. I have 4th and 6th. The question makes math interesting for us. Excellent. And we're going to talk about that too. It's how you approach it. And you're absolutely right. And change is hard. It's hard for us parents. It's hard for us as just people, isn't it? I don't like change sometimes. Anything, home or work or friends. Change is hard, and it's hard for our children as well. So I really like your point about the fact that it does make math interesting, and that is true. We dig much deeper in the types of questions now in math. So some tools for success that I really found that have really helped to make sure that your student is successful and you're successful is that, number one, your student needs to realize that half of the test is written. Our gifted kids and bright kids definitely need to know ahead of time what to expect. They don't like surprises, right? And so just getting them prepared really helps. They have to write. They have to write their answer. And this is rough. This has been very strange for some students because they don't understand why they have to write it. Okay? So the answers have to be answered in writing. There's also drawings are required, such as an array, table, a graph, or even their own creation. They have to be able to do these. It's not an option. So that's one of the things too that's really important to stress as you go through their online lessons, that you just kind of take a break and talk about these. This is the one that's I trick my kids all the time when I was doing the math with them. Multiple steps. They sometimes can figure out those questions so quickly, and they don't realize that the problem's asking for 2 or 3 different answers. So that's really important, is to slow them down and to teach them how to go through and check off, hey, did I answer that correctly? So I always suggest them that the students need to mark and understand what is being asked of them and how many answers they need to have. This is very, very important. The way the test is graded is how many parts they answer. Now, I'm sure you've heard this, but the students actually get credit for getting the wrong answer if they show how they got there. So they won't get credit for the wrong answer, but they will get some credit for if they have the right steps showing how they got that wrong answer. So it's really important because the whole point of these questions is to see how they think and process it and how they explain it. I'm sure most of you know by now that this is an array. This was new to me a few years ago when I was getting taught. So I just wanted to let you know because a lot of students are like, an array? Now, most of the older students know, but my third graders, they kind of tend to have a little bit harder time with this just because they are so quick and they can figure out things so quickly. So an array, you have a lot of questions with Common Core that deal with an array. So I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea. That's what they're talking about as an array. So what I did is I wanted to take you through one of the questions that is within the K-12 curriculum. And this is actually grade 3. And I believe it's unit 3, grade 3. And this is those extended math problems. This is exactly the type of questions that they are going to get on their state test this spring. So as you can see, it's not A, B, C, or D. They have to do a lot of work. So I wanted us to work together as a group on this because that's part of it too, is the discussion piece. A lot of the standards, if you have had time to look at them, talk about the importance of discussing with others how you solve a problem. Now this is different too because a lot of our gifted children want to do it all in their head. And they want to get it down as quickly as possible. Now others, we have very vocal gifted students, right? And they have no problem explaining their answer to us. So it kind of depends on which one you have, but it's important as you as the parent that you're discussing it with. Sometimes we talk about these actually at the dinner table. We talk about what's going on and how to solve it. And it's kind of fun to get the whole family involved. So let's first look at the problem. How many questions is it asking? And the spring test will ask you to answer many questions and what are some tools to help you throughout this. So these are things that I like to ask my students as we're going through this, okay? So here it is. Tamara organized her coins and recorded the number of stacks and coins in each stack. Now some of you might have older students and this is totally fine for that. I just want to take you through some steps that maybe you didn't think about. And also if you have a helpful hint, please volunteer and raise your hand or put it in the chat because I love new ideas. And something that maybe has worked really well for you or something that you found, don't ever do this because this has really a bad effect on students. So what I like to do is just kind of talk about it as a group and kind of take them through. You're modeling for them. You're modeling for them what it should kind of look like, a process. So here's question A. Complete the bar graph to show the total number of coins Tamara has for each type of coin in her collection. And here it is. Explain how you knew which numbers of coins to show on the graph. Now, if you notice here, this is when I would take my children and say, how many questions is this asking? Okay, it's not just complete the graph, right? It also says explain how you knew which numbers of coins to show on the graph. This is what I was saying is that a lot of students whiz right through this. And they see the graph, and they fill out the graph, right? And they don't say, explain how you knew. Okay? So this is one of those things that you really want to show them. Sometimes I bring this as a game to them. I say they're trying to trick you. And I want to see if you can find the trick. They're trying to make you not answer everything correctly. Can you see where they're trying to trick you? And that's when the student really starts reading the question a little bit more carefully because they don't want to be tricked. So this seems to help. So what I would do is I would take it through and I would discuss it. So how would you, if I was to ask you and you were my pretend student, can somebody tell me how would we find out the total number of coins that she has? That's a good question, Nancy. I don't feel like they're trying to trick the student, but as a teacher, I kind of find that it comes out that way. And I feel like letting the students realize that it's it's their job to really look at what they're asking because they will miss it. Has helped students go back and double check their work. So if they know that the questions are tricky and they're trying to make sure to see if the student reads all the questions through, it seems to have a better response on the children. Okay? You see it? Yeah, you see it all the time. Me too. And so just talking about that with your children, it really helps because then they're a lot more prepared when they go in. And then they're like, oh, okay, I totally know that these questions are going to have probably 2 or 3 things they're asking me, and I need to make sure I go through that. Okay, so Roxanne said to multiply. Yeah, what would I multiply, Roxanne? You are a very quiet group today. Number of stacks and number of coins, that's right. So we would go through here, and I'm actually going to do it on the next page so we can kind of have it all on here. We would multiply, right, the number of stacks. And so this would be 15 would be total, 18. And again, of course, when you're going through this as a class, you, with your student at home, you would definitely take a little bit more time in, you know, explaining the groups. Okay, so then you would say, okay, so here it is. Here was the question. Complete the bar graph. And this would be one thing, too, is that they need to make sure they look over here and they need to understand, you know, what does this line mean that doesn't have a number by it? And they would explain it. But just really taking this time on these questions that K-12 given you to really show and model your students how to be successful on this. So again, you would take your highlighter and you would come up here in quarters. We have 15, and since that's right here where the line is, we would fill that in. Hey, if anybody would love to fill in the dimes and nickels and pennies, that would be great while I'm filling in this one. Multitask, you know, as parents, we know how to fill in time really quickly. Anybody else? Oh, good. See, I like that too. So there was somebody, yep, perfect. Thank you for helping me out there. I appreciate it. Dimes had 18. Pennies had 24. And again, this would be a great time too just to talk with them about, you know, why is it important to be accurate on our graph? You know, a lot of students you kind of see and they're just, you know, why is it important to do that? You know, so use this time again to explain to them why they're doing what they're doing. Not just gifted students, but all students like to know what they're doing. They want to know why. And I'm just going to tell you this too, is a lot of times with students, especially the older they get, I like to explain something to them. That the reason why they're doing algebra is because they're going to have to do it again in college. The reason why they're doing science, they're going to have to do it again in middle school, they're going to have to do it again in high school, and they're going to have to do it in college and maybe in their career. A lot of times just explaining to students why they're doing something really puts the light bulb on and they pay a lot more attention. So why is it important to fill out a graph nicely? Because if they don't, they might get the wrong answer. So there is a reason. Thank you very much. Everybody did a wonderful job filling that in. Okay. So the next thing is, don't forget, it says explain. How you knew which numbers of coins to show on the graph. So again, I'm going to go back to Roxanne. She told us. She said right there, she said she took the number of stacks and she multiplied the number of coins. And I would have them write this out or verbally tell you and see this is the example. This is the example that they're looking for right here. To find the total for each kind of coin, I multiplied the number of stacks times the number of coins shown on the chart. And then they said 3 times 5 equals quarters, and 3 times 6, 18 dimes, and so on. So this is, again, an example to show them. They don't have to do this exactly, and Roxanne's would have been just fine. Number of stacks equals times the number of coins gives me my answer. They just want to see the explanation in a written form. Okay, So again, this was the words to explain. We just went over that on that one. I won't go over that one again. So here's the question. Here's the next question. How many more coins would Tamara need to have a total of 100 coins in her collection? How did you find your answer? So we're going to go back here because this is what we had already figured out. We had 15 coins already, correct? 18. We have the 12 and the 24. Now, what would I do? And this is the type of question. I would just model it for them. Great question, Lorinda. It will be typed. So they don't do handwritten, but they type their answers on the computer screen. And that's such a good question because what do you think the problem is with that, you guys, with typing? Does anybody have won't be a problem with the older kids, will it? But what about the younger kids? Yeah, they are slow typers, right? And that's why it's really important starting at 3rd grade. We try to stress that you really start the typing skills. So yes, they absolutely can. Yeah, so Carly just said to Lorinda, there is scratch paper there. So if it's easier for them to write out their answer and then type it, they can absolutely do that. But definitely have your children really start practicing their typing if they're younger. Because you can imagine it's really hard, isn't it? Okay, so what will we do here? What you guys you're my students. How would I explain this? It says, how many more coins would Tamara need to have a total of coins in her collection? What do I need to do? And if you feel like it, I would love it if you guys would write up on the board, maybe by my numbers, how would you solve this problem? Oh, these are great answers. Thanks so much for volunteering. It really helps a lot. Roxanne, you love math. I can tell. She's doing great too with Nancy. I love it. So yeah, so I love this. This is perfect. They would add the total number of coins from the previous problem, and if we add that all up, you're correct. It's 69 coins. But the question is 100, right? So we would take, because if we want 100, we need to figure out how many more we need, right? So I would run out of room here. And again, they don't get a wrong answer for how they write it. So they would have 31 coins. Excellent. So down here is right here is the example what they gave. I love it. Thanks, Roxanne. Gabby said first multiply the number of stacks by the number of coins per stack for each type. Excellent. Then add those results to get the total. Then subtract this number from 100, and that will be the answer. Great, Gabby. That's another fabulous answer. So what's awesome about this is that there's not just one right answer. And that was one of the things that when the Common Core was developed is that that's what they wanted. There's lots of ways to solve it, and not everybody is the same. So this was just K-12's example of Tamara needs 31 more coins. I added the total number of coins. They showed that. I subtracted 69 from 100 to find out how many more coins she needs. So again, it's modeling for our students what they need to do. Can you imagine if we did not model this for them and they went in to take their state test? I don't know how well they do. So it only takes that one time of really modeling and showing exactly what's expected, and then I feel like they will do really well. But I know with our gifted kids, they want to do well, and they want to try to be perfect, right? And that is a very hard thing to do. And so when they feel like they're failing because they don't quite understand what is expected, that's when we see them starting to shut down and get very frustrated. So it's our job to make sure that we're educating them and getting them prepared for this. And it just takes a little bit of time, and then you know they will get in there and do a fabulous job. So great job to all of you that have been working on this with them, because really we're going to see a big difference this spring in the test. I really think they're going to do awesome. Nancy, great question. This is a 3rd grade level. And sometimes it surprises me, but at the same time it doesn't. Now, this is what I was going to tell you guys, is I had quite a few. I worked on this a little while ago with some of my 3rd graders, because again, I want to prepare them as much as possible if I can. And I had one of my students who's very highly gifted tell me, Mrs. McKenna, I just feel like this is baby work. And I could understand that because he knew the answer. He did not understand. Why am I having to write this down? I know the answer. And I had to explain to him, I know, but I really need you to help me write it down so I can do better on it and help other students. And that really seemed to help him understand, okay, I'm going to do this because it's asking me to do it. But I'm also encouraging him because he's an example for the other students. So just letting them know that's just what they have to do, and writing it down. And it is very hard for our gifted students, but I feel like just getting them prepared of what to expect will really help them in the long run. So this is very important. I saw this, and it's actually going to be a video I'm going to show with you in just a few moments. But going deeper actually creates more freedom. I think Roxanne really nailed this is when she was saying that her kids loved it. I think that was you, Roxanne, wasn't it? It is going deeper. It's not just giving me A, B, C, or D. They really have to think about it and explain their thought process and why they are doing it. And so that is what, oh, it wasn't you, Roxanne? Let's see, who was it? Oh, it was, I'm going to find her name here in a minute. It was Nayla. I was like, I knew it. And so it is going deeper, but it can be very frustrating, right? Because, because students don't sometimes have so much going up in their brain, they have a hard time putting it out on the paper, explaining it. So that's what's hard. But if we can train them and help them how to communicate that, it will really work better for them. So it does do more freedom. We got to just look at it the right way. Okay, this is a great video. I wanted you guys to watch. The history behind this video is actually from a teaching website. And I thought it was really, I wanted you to see what it was like in the classroom. Because I know you're at home and sometimes we get so into our own niche, but I wanted you to kind of see how this teacher uses discussion with her students. And I feel like if this helps you at home, how to lead a discussion with your students. And you might be doing this, but I wanted you just to kind of get another tool. And so give me a green check mark when you guys are all finished, but I want you to just to watch this. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the video. It should start right off. And it's about the love for math. So go ahead and get started. All right, looks like most of you are finished. I really liked that video, and I want to encourage you because you guys are the learning coach at home. And you need to every once in a while, and maybe you do, but you're like me. I need to go and watch some things and get some new tools and, just some new ideas. And I like that because of that discussion piece. And with your gifted child, sometimes that can be difficult, can't it? But sometimes it can be really fruitful. But just to try to get them to explain and to, defend what they are saying the answer is a really good part of the teaching moment that you need to do at home. Yes, and Nancy, I was thinking the exact same thing. She says she learns with her child. Absolutely. And so she said, I used to hate math as a kid, but I love it now, and so does my student. It is so true. I always tell my parents, don't ever tell your kids that you don't like something because they feed off of that, believe it or not. And I know it's really hard, but as a parent who is teaching, you are an actor. You really are. When I was in the traditional classroom, I considered myself as an actress. I really did. I had to just act like I loved everything to the fullest because my students fed off me. If they knew I did not like grammar, oh, I really do not like grammar. I love math. I do not like grammar. My students would feed off of that. But I had to pretend that I love grammar. So I love that. And so, Nancy, that's a great thing. And, this is, with these things with the Common Core, I know it's different. It's especially harder, I feel, for our older students because they haven't been taught this way, except, comparing them to the younger students who are just beginning, it can be a battle because they've never had to defend what they think the answer is. They've never had to explain it or write it out. But that's why it's good to start it at home, and what a blessing it is that they have you as amazing learning coaches at home to be able to talk about that with them and take them step by step. And so let's see, I see this one. Ethan said, putting down math thinking into written, yes, for younger ones is difficult. A 7-year-old with fifth grade math, yes, it is very frustrating. So what I would actually do in that part, Ethan, because your student is not going to be taking the state test. So what I would actually do is I would work on currently just having them verbally tell you and you write it out for them. Because the maturity isn't there yet. And that's normal. The thoughts and the education and what's going on there and the brightness is there. But the maturity to write it down and to slow and put those thoughts on paper isn't, correct? So it's more important that we teach them how to express it and you write it out to show them. And as they get older, then teach them slowly how to write that when they're ready. So I would just work on that because I don't want them to shut down. You know, we want them to get and say, you know, so just work expressing it with their words and then work slowly into the written part. Any other questions? Because that's a great one. So isn't it great though you get to do this at home with them? I think it's just amazing. I really do. Yeah. Yep, I will. Okay. So the other thought I wanted just to kind of touch base with you before we wrap it up is to remember to dig deeper. And you can bring math into anything. And this is just bringing the connection with your student. It could be with science, it could be a discussion. But I found this and I thought it was really cool, and it was just an activity. And it's showing the picture of different things, and then you discuss it. Again, it's teaching them how to discuss it. Because even though it's not math, it's still teaching them the steps and how to critically put out their argument on what they believe. And that will correlate with math later on. And so I just thought this was a really great thing to think about, that, you know, when you're looking at something, ask them why. Why do you think that way? You'll be amazed. Just keep asking why. Math is the same way. Why is 2 plus 3 equal 5? Why? Well, it just is. Well, I know, but I want you to tell me why. Well, if you have 2 and you add 3, look, I'll show you. 2 plus 3 more apples, whatever it might be, equals 5 apples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just getting them trained to discuss it and explain why really helps. The real-world connection after students share, discuss their efforts, have them try to identify other examples, you know, evidence that there needs to be to solve a problem. These are different things that you can do. Again, there's different types of evidence, and they can show it in math. Okay? These are just, I thought this was just a really cool activity just to try to correlate that no matter what you do, I want to encourage you to dig deeper with whatever you're doing for your students, that enrichment. Okay? So definitely. Oh, I don't know, Nancy. Yes, Nancy. Well, Carly knows. We know a lot of people in Georgia, so we can follow up on that for you. Okay. Before we leave, I wanted to tell you guys another thing too. I actually opened the link here, so if you wanted to click on it, you can dig around. Who here? I'm gonna clear this off here. Who here has heard of Engage New York curriculum? Anybody? Nobody? Wow. Engage New York. Okay. K-12's curriculum is amazing. So if you guys keep doing what you're doing, you're going to get totally enough what you need. But if you want a little bit more on enrichment or maybe an example on something else, so let's say your student is really struggling with adding the fractions and you need some more resources, or maybe they love adding with fractions and you want some enrichment. Engage New York curriculum is a curriculum that a lot of schools nationwide have adopted, and it's kind of a trend, but they've adopted to kind of bring in gaps. And so I opened this up because they have a lot of resources in the modules. They're called modules. So if you really want some more of those deeper thinking problems, more than the ones that K-12 has on there, and you just want to dig something different or a different look at something, click on Engage New York and find it. It's a big website, so I'm not going to lie about that. There's a lot on there. But it does break it down by grade, and it does break it down by, like I said, modules, and the modules have the topics in it. So if you're needing a little bit more enrichment, definitely feel free to go in there. Don't forget about our Gifted Resources blog that we have here that has all types of trainings for gifted students and for you, for the parents. And again, if you're just interested in your spare time, you can go to the Common Core Standards and just take a look. If you're wanting to dig a little deeper and find out, just, I know as parents have a lot of extra time, don't we? No, we don't, but some of us sometimes do. So I just wanted to put that up there for you. I wanted just to open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions? You can get on the mic or put it in the chat. Michelle, what grade is that for? Is that for high school? Interesting. I'd have to look that one up. I bet it is. Because if it's the state test, it's pretty much the same test nationwide. It's just up to the states what they want to name it. Yes, it's graded by people. Yes. I know it's broken into two parts. Usually there is a part 1, and a lot of times they have just standard multiple choice. Part 2 is the written. It's like what we just showed you, and it's like this in language arts as well, the reading. So, but these are the ones that you just definitely want to make sure that everybody, you have those discussions with. Okay. Well, you guys have been awesome. I'm hoping this gave you some tools and just kind of gave you some, I don't know, some explanation and some awareness of what to expect and how to prepare your students. But the gifted kids, they need that extra help in the beginning to just make them feel comfortable, and then they just soar with it. So I'm really excited for them. I think they're going to do wonderfully. And I really appreciate your guys' time. It's always fun to do these classes with you because I'm a mom, and I love to talk and get feedback from you. So great job. Keep up the good work. You guys are almost to summer break. And what you guys do is really hard work, and we know that, and we really appreciate everything you guys have been doing. So have a wonderful Wednesday.